welcome back, everyone. This is the Young Leading Leadership with Mr. Bemigbega. Mr. Bemigbega Adejumo. It's a great privilege to have him to speaking with us today on the heart of leadership. Today is tomorrow is Valentine's Day, so it's like the heart. So he has to do with love for leadership. He has to do with passion for leadership. So we're going to be waiting for Mr. Adejumo to join us, and then we're going to start right away. So it's a great privilege to have him here. Thanks very much, sir, for joining. Okay, I'm going to add him up now. Okay. What's up?
How are you, sir? Good to see you.
I'm doing great. Thanks very much, Mr. Dijimo. Thanks very, very much. I'm very grateful. I'm very good.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
so it's a tradition we have here. So I would first go to introduction and then we would welcome you. So Mr. Bemigbega Adejumo is a singer, songwriter, music minister, audio engineer, business development manager, IT, with over 15 years of experience in music, sound crafting, a master's degree holder. Is passionate about value delivery in his area of expertise. That is Mr. Bemigbega Adejumo. Welcome very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for having me.
So, yeah. So the floor is yours, sir. So we're going to be listening. I'm ready. I have my and there.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Good to be here. I am Bemiga, because I noticed you kept saying Bemiga or something like that. I don't even know what you were saying. I forgive you in advance. Yeah, but
Ghanaian.
I understand. I love Ghana so much. I've been to Ghana a couple of times. Totally love the country. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for having me, and I'm honored to be here. It's always interesting to me whenever I get the opportunity to speak to people in my generation, and I am not gonna say, oh, yeah, nah, I'm just thankful to be able to speak to you guys, and I'm hoping to also learn. I'm not just here to give a public lecture. I'm here to rub minds. I believe there will be questions and all of that. So I also want to learn, and the topic is something that is very dear to my heart, which is about leadership, the very heart of leadership. And every time I read through the topic, every time I looked at the topic, I would always think, what is the heart of leadership? What is the heart of leadership? It kept going through my mind, and to be honest, the only thing that kept coming to my mind every time I thought about it was service. I believe personally that service lies at the very heart of leadership. At the very core of leadership is service. If you take service away from leadership, then you just have title, you just have position, you just have, I don't know, maybe power, authority. But I would read a scripture. For those who are not Christians, please pardon me. I would most likely read a scripture or two in the course of this short teaching. Let me say it that way. But I just thought about it. I'm looking at the life of Jesus. He exemplified that, very, very essence throughout his 33 years on earth. He was a servant leader. He wasn't a boss. You know what I mean? In the real context of it, he wasn't the one to say, oh, do this or just do that, or bring me this, fetch me water, carry my leg, carry my hand. No, he wasn't that kind of guy. He was one who would stick his neck out. He was one who would do first and then let others follow, right? So it's, for me, if you ask me, if you want us to wrap up this conversation and say in one sentence, what is the heart of leadership? The heart of leadership is service. Service. If you look at the greats, when I say the greats, our fathers in the faith that have gone ahead of us, from Papa Adeboye to Bishop Oyedepo to Bishop Adejumo, I can mention 1,000 of them. You would see service at the core of their being. These are people who have traveled the world over. They are very well achieved. God has blessed them, lifted them. They've written many books. But when you see the way they are, in church or in their private spaces, you would see that these people still serve as much as they did when they were growing up. My mom, for instance, Pastor Funke Felix Ajimo, she would still go to church and sweep. Things like that are not things you see every day. The average person, once they start to rise, once they start to achieve and attain, there's a tendency for that to get into their heads, and they feel like they are above certain things. And that is one of the things I want to talk about today. The fact that if you take, it's like you put a kettle of water on fire. As long as it remains on fire, it will keep boiling. It will reach the boiling point and it will keep bubbling, right? It will keep boiling. But the moment you take it out from that, burner, when you drop it on the sink, it will still be hot, right? It won't just go cool immediately. It will still be hot. But it is just a matter of time. 1 hour would pass, 1 hour, 30 minutes would pass. It will start to get cool. And that is what happens when you look at people that, they've lost relevance. Check their history, check what they have been doing. The moment you take out service from leadership, it starts to get, it starts to decline, it starts to get sour, and that is really, what the essence of what I want to talk about today. If you read Matthew chapter 20, verses 25 to 28, I'll read it in the Amplified Version. Jesus speaking, he says, but Jesus called them to himself and said, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles have absolute power, which is what I was saying earlier. They have absolute power and they lord it over them. I'm from Nigeria, Lagos, precisely. That's where I work and all of that. I'm not from Lagos, but that's where I work and all of that. And if you look at the way things are currently in Nigeria, I don't like talking about Nigeria a lot, but if you look at the way our leaders are, they totally exemplify what I just read. It is what they understand as power isn't service. What they understand as power is, to lord it over people. Let's keep the poor, poor. Let's keep them oppressed. That way, we're able to perpetuate whatever plans that we have. And Jesus is clearly saying here that, rulers of the Gentiles have absolute power and they lord it over them. Their great men exercise authority over them, tyrannizing them. But this is not the way it should be with you, amongst you, And if you read the preceding verses, you would understand what Jesus was saying here. But let's not go into that. And whoever wishes to be first among you shall be your willing and humble slave. Imagine Jesus saying slave. He didn't even say servant. Do you know what a slave is? That's how low you have to be if you want to be a leader. But and just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but came to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many, paying the price to set them free from the penalty of sin. And this, there is no greater leader that has walked the planet Earth than Jesus. He's the perfect example of leadership. Perfect example of leadership. It doesn't get any better than that. And if the perfect example of leadership is telling you, that for you to be the greatest, for you to be the leader, then you have to be like a slave. That already gives you a blueprint of what leadership should be about. I don't care, how many books you read on leadership. I've read a couple. I don't care how many seminars you go to on leadership. I would say, some of the things that I've learned over the years. But I need to establish that at the very core of leadership is service. If you are not ready to serve, you are not ready to be a leader. Because leadership is not a title. Leadership is not a position in my mind. Leadership is service. Leadership is responsibility. If you truly understand what that is, some of us would even run away from leadership. When they offer it to you, you would run and say, you know what, I can't do this. I mean, my dad started ministry at the age of 30, and he moved to a very remote location at the time. Akure was a very, very remote location at the time, and it didn't make sense to a lot of his people, a lot of his friends. Why would you leave a relatively okay city like Ibadan and move to Akure? But that was what God was calling him to. And I have watched him over the years. My dad is the kind of leader that, someone will call at 1 a.m. in the morning. I even experienced this one. One of my uncles, he got involved in an accident on his way home. This was like around 1 a.m. in the morning. My dad was sleeping. And then he got the call. No, actually, my uncle called my sister, and then she ran upstairs to say, "Oh, this happened." My dad jumped up. He had to drive about 50 minutes to get to where this person was. You know, this is not something that is usual, right? So, and things like that set the precedence for me. Like, if a man, you know, who he didn't need to, he could have maybe called one of his deacons and say, "Oh, please quickly go and do this for me." But he jumped up. For me, that is leadership. Leadership is service. Leadership is putting the people you're leading first before yourself. It is hard, I promise you. It is easier to say, it is harder to do. Leadership is a lot of sacrifice. It is a whole lot of sacrifice. I can't even explain it enough. It is sacrifice, my brother. Leadership is sacrifice. Notice how I'm saying it over and over again. Leadership is sacrifice. Sacrifice. There is an example I will share with us. A man called Herb Keller. He's the founder and chairman of Southwest Airlines. I read a story, you know, about him, and I was just reading on him, and I observed how he was able to maintain profitability in his company for over 41 years straight. I'm talking through recessions, ups and downs. The company was still profitable, right? Still profitable, and it blew my mind. You know, I started digging deeper, and I to try and understand this guy's thought process, how he thinks. I mean, how are you able to run such a big company for over 41 years and you stay profitable? You know, and he, you know, one of the things he taught, or one of the things he said was that, you know, like well, one of his quotes was that power should not be or rather power should be reserved for weightlifting and for boats, not for leadership. If you're crazy about power, then please, by all means, go and compete in World's Strongest Man or World's Strongest Woman. You know, and this is someone that understood leadership. You know, he understood that leadership isn't just power. It's not just being able to lord it over someone, shout at someone, or send a stinky email. He understood that leadership is service. I have been privileged to lead, you know, certain teams in my time on earth, right? And one of the things I'm thankful to God for, you know, is the ability to see beyond whatever pedestal that, you know, one is, and to be able to relate to people and see into their lives. If there is one thing I am thankful for, like I said, is, you know, is that grace. You know, if you're leading a group of people and you cannot connect with them, you know, on an individual level, then you're simply leading yourself. If you ask me, you're simply, because I mean, leadership is everything. It will amaze you how far a 2 minute phone call can go. You know, just calling someone that is under you. For instance, you haven't seen them in church, you know, and then you decide to pick up your phone and call them. Just a 2 minute conversation can change someone's life forever. That is how much influence and power that we have as leaders. And I'm talking to us here now as everyone being a leader, because whether you like it or not, you would influence someone at every step and stage of your life. So you are a leader. It's not until they knight you and they say you are now the leader of, no. It doesn't have to get to that, you know. As long as there is influence involved, then you're a leader. You know, and the earlier we start to understand these things, the better. The better we become at leadership. You know, leadership is influence, according to Oswald Sanders. Leadership is influence. Leadership is influence. Leadership isn't raising your voice or shouting or pressing people. Leadership is influence. And let me quickly say that if you say influence, because if you check the dictionary meaning of influence, influence basically stems from whoever it is coming from, if you know what I mean. Like, influence happens when there is a certain human being, and then your actions or your lifestyle, you know, now has an impact on someone else. So meaning it takes us back to you. If you as a person, if you are not well guarded, if you are not working on your weaknesses, if you're not aspiring to be a better person, that means that whatever influence you're going to transfer to anyone else, do you get me? So Leadership starts with you. It starts with you. And I'm happy that this is happening, to people in our generation, because my mom always says that when you start to go higher in life, weaknesses become amplified. There are certain things that you get away with now that you're not very influential or you're not very known, that it won't be an issue. But as you start to get higher in life, little things become amplified. You become the talk of the town. So she always used to pull my ears and tell me, now is the time to work on those things. Now is the time to work on those things. Those things that, like the Bible will say, the little foxes that easily beset. Now is the time to work on them. The little lies that we still tell. We all know what it is, right? In our place of privacy, we all know the things that we're struggling with. But because leadership is influence, that influence has the tendency to amplify and transfer whatever it is that you have to other people. I mean, I have, not to mention any names, but I have seen churches where, because their leader styles his hair in a certain way, everybody styles their hair in a certain way. That is influence. That's how powerful influence is. Maybe the leader never said it on the podium and said, "Oh, going forward, everybody must start." I am certain he never did. I am certain. But that's how powerful leadership is, and influence. That's how powerful it is. So therefore, that takes me back to the fact that as a leader, you have to start with yourself. A man who cannot lead himself cannot lead people anywhere. Yesterday night, I was struggling to finish something I was working on, and I sat and I told myself, guy, if you cannot muster ginger to finish this thing, how do you want to open your mouth to encourage somebody else, to attain their goals and reach for the stars? It doesn't make sense. And, I was like, okay, you can do it. And I sat down with my laptop and I was trying to, leadership starts with you. It starts with you. You have to work on yourself. I'm not saying you have to become a perfect human being, but you have to work on yourself, because that influence will be transferred to people. I'm sorry to say, but there are people that are in hellfire today simply because of the influence of other people. There are people in hellfire today. That is how powerful. When Apostle Paul said all things are lawful, but not all things are expedient, he was trying to make you understand that influence is very powerful. This might be lawful. It might be lawful to consume alcohol, but is it expedient? What impact would that have on the people I am leading? I always tell people, anytime someone asks me, is it a sin to consume alcohol? This is the example I always give them. Imagine me, as a leader in the little sphere that I'm in, and I finish work at 5 p.m. and I go to a bar. Before I even go to the bar, say the Sunday prior, I preached in church, and I met someone for the first time and I was preaching Jesus to them. I told them, "Oh, please give your life to Christ. Jesus loves you." Blah blah blah. Yada yada yada. And then on Monday morning, I'm done from work. I've had a long day, and I just find a bar close to my office. I sit, put my bag down. Can I please have a cold bottle of Star? If you don't know what Star is, it's a type of lager, in Nigeria. And I'm sitting with my cold bottle of Star and I'm drinking. And the person I spoke to on Sunday walks in. Now, if you, and this is very debatable, is drinking the alcohol in itself a sin? I'll leave that to you to answer. But at that point in time, is it expedient? That's the question. Because that person walks in, particularly if that person has had a rough life, right? That person walks in and he sees me, the image he sees, I promise you, would be conflicting in his mind. That singular action that I have done might have damned him eternally, if you know what I mean. Like, he might, because of that, say, you know what, if this guy is doing this, I mean, what's the point? And then he walks out and he goes back to his old ways. So that is how important influence is. Leadership. We as individuals have to work on ourselves, because we influence people by our words, by our actions, and our lifestyle. So yeah, one of the things I wrote down here is leadership begins with being, BEING. Leadership begins with being, and then it ultimately turns into doing. So leadership begins with being, and then it turns into doing. You must be careful what you say casually as a leader. It can be taken very seriously. We have seen this happen time and time again through time, through history. Be careful what you say casually. People can take it very, very seriously. You'll be amazed. You'll be amazed. And that is where things like empathy comes in, compassion, being able to control your anger, not to sin when you're angry as a leader, because people can take your words are powerful. As a person of influence, your words are powerful. You have to be careful. Right. Ralph Waldo Emerson says that every man is a hero and an oracle to somebody. And to that person, whatever he says has an enhanced value. When I was growing up, my mom was if you mess up, she would just brush you back. She doesn't have time, no patience. Anything she sees, she'll brush you to keep you in check. But I can count how many times my dad actually beats me. Not even my sisters. I can count how many times I was very stubborn growing up, so he actually beat me a couple more times. But he was one to I used to prefer my mom actually beating me than my dad scolding me. I mean, because if my dad sits you down and he speaks to you for 20 minutes, oh my goodness. I mean, you would go back and think on your life, like, why did I do this? I should not have done this. I mean, why? The words would cut deeper than whatever cane or whatever my mom would use. That is how powerful words are. Because he is my leader. At the time growing up, he was my leader, and his words were very weighty to me. And like I said earlier, if your life connects with anybody, you are a leader. And you taking our time to plead with us again, to beg us, please be careful the things that you say. Be compassionate. Your words can cut really deep. You have no idea what people are going through in life. This is one thing I've had to learn, and I'm still learning. Words are very, very powerful. Very powerful. Very quickly, let me just talk about how to influence others, as I start to wrap up, because I want us to go into a bit of like conversation, questions, and all of that. You can influence others by helping them, you multiply yourself, basically. You help people become positive influence to others. And to do this, it takes being unselfish. And like I was saying earlier, it takes being generous, being committed. Like I said earlier, also leadership is work. My brother, leadership is work. Leadership is work. It is a whole lot of work. I'm someone that if you leave me in the house, I can be in the house for 2 weeks and not go out. But because of leadership, I've had to drive 8 hours just to be there for someone. Leadership is work. Leadership is literally, I don't know if you know the song, my life is not my own. That's literally what leadership is. Your life is not yours. It is not
yours.
I am a pastor's kid, and I can tell you for free that was one of the things I struggled with growing up, because my parents were not just my parents; they were parents to a lot of people. A lot of people, they had to be there for this, be there for that, be there for this. And sometimes I'll ask myself, please help me, please. Whose parents are these people truly? Like, do I even have parents? I mean, they're traveling here, going there, doing this and that. I'm like, please, can I just have my parents for like a week? I mean, so it's leadership is a lot of work. Leadership is a lot of work. Another way to influence people is by mentoring them, basically pouring your life into other people, helping them to reach their potentials, being there for them, encouraging them. And these things require passion. It requires you being genuinely interested in people's lives, not just on the surface, but being able to go beyond the outer shell into, into the deep things. You have to give yourself, into things like that. Then you also influence people by motivation. You spur them into actions, helping them to believe that they can be better. The latent potentials on their inside can be more. I found myself having to do this a lot of times. I was privileged to lead a small team of singers, and I remember someone sharing a testimony recently, and she was like, oh, when she joined initially, she was very shy and all of that. And I remember that time I would tell her, you're leading today. And I did that for 3 months because I didn't even know it was up to 3 months. I kept pushing her. Now she's one of the very strong leads that we have. These are some of the things that you have to do. You have to be interested in people's lives beyond the surface. Beyond the surface. You have to be interested in people's lives. It will amaze you how much confidence people can get when you just give them little words of affirmation. I mean, like I said earlier, you don't know what people are going through. You don't know the kind of families they grew up in. You don't know the kind of abuse they've had to weather through. Just those kind words. Those kind words can help people. I was in London, I think about 4 or 5 years ago, and I was shooting a video, with my then producer, and I remember I can never forget this. There was a little boy. He must have been maybe like 3 or 4. He was learning how to ride the bicycle. He had that guard thing they put. It was a small bicycle. It was with his dad. His dad was pushing him and trying to encourage him, and he was like, I'm not getting it. I'm trying to mimic whatever he was saying. I don't really know. I'm not getting it. I'm not getting it. And then I remember my producer, he was the one holding the camera, and then it was like a surge of confidence just ran through him, and he started paddling and is it paddling or pedaling? I don't even know now. And and he started riding by himself. I was really tripped. I was like, wow! Imagine how much confidence just that little act of clapping and encouraging the boy did. You'll be amazed at what those things can do to people. You'll be amazed. And then finally, like I said earlier, also, you have to be the model. You have to model it. People would mostly remember how you made them feel over what you tell them. People will mostly remember, your actions beyond what you can say. You can climb up, quote a million things. But if people look at your life and you're the complete opposite of what you're saying, I mean, they definitely won't be interested. I always tell people that my dad was one of the people who preached Jesus to me, not by his words, but by his actions. He didn't even lead me to Christ. He wasn't the one that led me to Christ. Of course, he did here and there, but my best memory of giving my life to Christ was not through him. It was in church and the midweek service and someone else. But his life was such that I was like, man, I want to know the Jesus that this guy serves. He lived and he still lives and such an exemplary life. Both in how he relates with my mom and how he relates with people and how he lives his life and how he lives his life. It was something that was like, man, I derailed once or twice, but I was always like in awe of how he lives his life. I'm like, this guy, I want to know the God that you serve. I want to know this Jesus that you serve. That is how much being a model can be to people. Yeah. As I start to wrap up, people's actions would reflect your influence in their lives. And to just summarize, a person of influence nurtures people, has faith in people, understands people, listens to people, enlarges people, navigates for other people, and connects with people beyond just the surface. Oh, hi, hello, how are you? Connects with people, empowers people, has integrity with people, reproduces other influencers. So these are some of the things that a person of influence should do. I mean, no one is perfect. I'm also aspiring, to be close and to do these things better. But this just gives you a brief picture, on what a leader should be, or in my opinion. And I know that, as we think on these words, I believe the Holy Spirit will help us, to grow them and get better. I just want to reiterate that please note that every time you're privileged to be in a position of leadership, notice I use the word privileged. Every time you find yourself in a position of leadership, see it like people's lives depend on what you do and what you do not do. Literally, lives are attached to whatever position you find yourself in. And we know that the value of a soul, of a life, cannot be quantified. The soul of a man, it's in the scriptures. Heaven, every time a soul is won to Christ, the whole of heaven rejoices. That is how important a soul is to God. Like, they literally leave everything they're doing. Imagine Angel Gabriel is on an assignment to go and deliver a message, and then he hears that, oh, a soul has just been won to Christ. He drops his parcel, drops everything, and he starts to dance. Woo! That is how important it is to God. That is how important it is. So if you go into whatever leadership position with that mindset or with that knowledge, it will influence the kind of things you do. It will influence the kind of words you say. Because souls, lives, literally are attached to you. And God is counting on you to be a positive influence in those lives. Leadership is work. Leadership is influence. But, it's something that I believe that with the right tools and with the help of the Holy Spirit, we can do. We can do and do it very well.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
Wow. Let's say thank you. Let's say thank you. Okay. So there's a question I want to ask.
Okay.
So please, if you have any question, we're going to take, we don't want this to be too long so that other people can watch it, because when it's too long, people get tired quickly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
This is if you have a question, we just take like 3 questions and then that's all. But this is my own question. Mr. Dijimo, we're in a season where we can see a deficiency in the leadership in Nigeria and in West Africa generally, and we can see it so obvious. What do you think is the advice you would give to young people at this stage of our life? I don't know, but I feel that there's something that we need to really concentrate on, especially in West Africa, because I believe that God has called me for West Africa. Other people, I believe God has sent them there. But here in West Africa, we need help with the leadership. So what do you think should be what every young person should desire at this stage of our life and in this generation, in this time?
Good. That's a very good question. There are many answers, but if you ask me personally, I would say delete selfishness from your mind. Delete, remove, uproot, purge yourself of selfishness. That's, for me, that's it. That because I believe that it's been ingrained and wired into our DNA over time. We have watched our fathers and our fathers before that go into positions of leadership, and all they do is me, myself, I, my family. That's it. So that narrative has been passed down from generation to generation. If we're going to change the narrative, we have to first of all delete selfishness. You cannot be a leader and be selfish. I didn't even say good leader. We have not even got into good leader. You can't even be a leader and be a selfish person. Those 2 things do not work, and that is why we have bad leadership, because they are only thinking about me, myself.
I think I have to cut this side and then make it like a reel so people listen to this. And cut this side. So please, any other question? Any other question? Any other question? Okay. So no other question. Okay. So Mr. Adejimo, before everybody leaves, I would say, what last word would you give to us? What advice would you give to us?
Let me see. I would say that we as young people should. I know this is hard to say. It's easier to say and harder to do. But I would encourage young people to embrace positions of leadership. God is not going to come down anymore physically to come and make Africa, West Africa, a better place. We have to do the work. We have to do the work. We have to go into positions of leadership and change the narrative. And please don't get too excited. It doesn't. I'm not talking about, okay, maybe you being a local government chairman or you being a governor. It doesn't start there. It starts with you being your class captain, you being your course rep, you being a good dad, you being a good brother, it starts from our little spaces of influence, because those little spaces of influence cascade into the family, cascade into the society, and then into the country at large. So it starts from us. Things as little as you're eating something, you're in the car, you're done, and then you throw it out the window. It starts from things like that. It starts from things like that. I mean, it's easy to point fingers at our leaders and say we have bad leaders. If we're true to ourselves, are we any better? The leaders we have are a representation of the people that we are. So we have to change the narrative. We as a people have to become better. When we become better, the structure becomes better. The leader becomes better.
They said leadership starts with you, with the nylon. I think that nylon, dropping things on the floor, that thing is very, very important. I've always had issues with people. I see some believers, strong believers, drop those things, and I'm wondering, how are you showing an example? So I think we'll take this last question and then we're going to go. So let me see. Okay, she said, how do you lead people that are way older than you without making them feel disrespected?
Good. That's a very good question. I have been privileged to be in this WhatsApp group, a couple of times in my leadership career. I've had to lead people that are like my mom's age. If there's one thing I have learned though, is the fact that wisdom is profitable to direct. One of the things that happens when you're leading people that are older than you is there's a tendency for them to put, let me say, a need for respect first. That becomes their defense. That's the first thing they want to attack you with, right? The fact that they're waiting to see if you would disrespect them. They're waiting to see if you would that's the first thing. That's always the first thing they put up. So the reason I said wisdom is profitable to direct is what I found myself doing was I befriended them. So I was able to break that barrier. I was able to eliminate that, feeling of them even feeling disrespected in the first place by befriending them. I moved away from being official, like just instructing them, directing them. I moved into, I want to be your friend. That way I'm able to break that barrier down. And then they see that, okay, this guy isn't here to boss me around. This guy is here to achieve a goal, and he's on my side. So I don't, except of course there will always be the stubborn ones. There will always be the ones that God will give you the wisdom to handle those. But on the average, I would recommend befriend them. Try and go to their level. Try and be on their frequency. Basically, don't come with the bossy, I'm your leader, I'm your boss. Even though you're older than me, you have to do what I say. Befriend them, and you to amaze you how childish some of those people become. To amaze you. I mean, they're just old in age. We're all still kids on the inside, right? So it will amaze you. It worked for me. I'm hoping it worked for you.
Thanks very much, sir. Thank you so much. So I hope Mr. Dejuma has been able to answer your questions. So I would like to recognize my mentor. She's here. Her name is Story Before Glory. She's been a very good support. It's a miracle. So thanks very much, ma, for joining. Thanks very much, ma, for joining. So we're going to allow me leave now. So let's say a big thank you. Please, let's say thank you before you leave. Let's say thank you. Let's say thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you. I'm waiting for the thank you. So let the thank you come. Let's say thank you.
It's okay. I'm sure people are saying it already in their hearts.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for having me. You take care.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Thanks very much, guys, for joining. I'm very grateful. Thanks very much to Mr. Robinson. Thanks very much for recommending. Thanks very much to my mentor, Story for Glory. I love you, I love you so much, and nothing short of First Speaks. Thanks very much to Mr. Dijuma as well. Thanks so much. So I would trying to actually say thanks to everyone showing live. So I'm just going to try to say for everyone still live. Okay, I can't do that now. So maybe just stay. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. And then please stay tuned till Monday. We're going to be talking about the power of consistency, which is going to be coming on Monday, 4 p.m. Thanks so much, guys. I love you all.